The drive used to feel like home. 5 hours of winding hills and open road, packed snacks and kids playing I Spy in the back seat. It had always meant we were headed towards something warm, something familiar, a tradition that somehow survived childhood, marriages, even my dad's death. The annual family reunion at my mother's house. This was the first time I was making the drive alone. Well, alone with the kids. No Shane riding shotgun with one hand on the wheel and the other lazily flipping through playlists. No bickering over bathroom stops. Just me, gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly, sunglasses hiding the fact that I'd cried half the way there. Mom, how much longer? About 30 minutes, sweetie. Will Grandma have the water slide this year? Yeah, baby, I lied. She always does. I didn't want to admit how nervous I was. Ever since the divorce finalized 3 months ago, my mom had become distant. I got polite, clipped responses to texts. Holly, my sister, had completely stopped replying altogether. I chalked it up to discomfort, awkwardness, maybe even embarrassment over how public the divorce got after Renee posted that photo of her and Shane in the Bahamas. She captioned it, starting fresh. We were still married. But I didn't expect what happened next. We pulled into the gravel driveway, the one that always got dust all over the car, and I immediately noticed something was off. No cars. No music. No cousins running around the yard with sparklers. Just silence. The front door opened before I could knock. My mom stood there with a strange look on her face, like she'd been rehearsing something. Tiffany, she said. What are you doing here? I blinked. What do you mean? It's the reunion. Her lips pressed into a tight line. We canceled it. I told Holly to call you. My heart stopped. No, she didn't. We made plans weeks ago. I brought the potato salad. The kids. We thought it was best to skip it this year. Things are too tense. Behind me, my youngest asked from the car window, Can we go in, Mommy? I swallowed. Can we just come in? Let them stretch their legs at least. She stepped outside and pulled the door mostly closed behind her. I don't think that's a good idea. The house isn't ready. Maybe next year, honey. The word honey felt like poison. I was dismissed like a door-to-door salesman. I stood there, stunned, not knowing what to say. Then I heard it, faint laughter, clinking glass. Somewhere inside the house. Who's here? I asked slowly. Her expression didn't change. It's just the neighbors. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. But I already knew. She wasn't lying to protect me. She was lying to exclude me. And for the first time in my life, I saw my own mother as someone I couldn't trust. We drove away in silence. The kids kept asking questions I couldn't answer, and I just told them we were going to a hotel for a special night. I pulled into the cheapest roadside I could find, gave them the snacks I'd packed for the reunion, and let them watch cartoons while I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. I kept hearing her voice. We canceled it. Except she hadn't canceled it. Not really. I'd seen her face. I knew when my mother was lying. She had that same blank, calculated expression when I was 12 and asked if she'd read my poetry notebook, the one she later admitted to showing Holly because it worried her. My phone buzzed. A notification. Instagram. My cousin Megan posted a story. I almost scrolled past it until I saw the background, red and white streamers. A long folding table. Someone holding a sparkler. I tapped. The next clip showed Aunt Louise, laughing, holding a drink, then panning around to reveal Holly. Holly. At the reunion. In our backyard. No mistaking it. The same giant oak tree. The same creaky swing set Dad had built 20 years ago. The reunion was happening right now, and my kids were eating gas station pretzels in a dingy motel room. I felt sick. I messaged Megan. Hey, I thought the reunion was canceled. No response. I tried texting Holly. Nothing. I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was deliberate. They didn't want me there. Not just me, my kids, too. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with my middle child's arm draped across my stomach and my heart thudding like a war drum. I kept replaying the look on my mom's face. The casual cruelty of it. I started scrolling Facebook, digging through relatives' profiles. I checked public posts, tagged photos, anything. Piece by piece, I built the picture. They told some people it was canceled, but not all. Some posts said small get-together. Some mentioned keeping things low-key this year. But it was clearly planned. Decorations, food, chairs, tents. I found a post from Uncle Gary's wife. So good to see everyone. Missed a few faces, but such a lovely day to arts. Missed a few faces. I stared at that line for a long time. My face. My kids' faces. We were the few they decided didn't matter. By 3 a.m., I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to scream or start drama online. I wasn't going to beg them to explain themselves. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly either. I started with Holly. We hadn't spoken directly in months, not since the divorce got ugly and she accidentally liked one of Renee's posts that mocked me with a side-by-side of me and her, captioned, "Upgrade." Holly had unliked it within minutes, but I saw it. I always saw it. I texted her at 7 a.m. when I knew she'd be up doing her fake morning routine for her followers. Me. Hope the party was worth it. The kids cried themselves to sleep. No response. Of course. That morning, I drove the kids to a park 2 towns over. I let them run wild, trying to scrub the confusion from their faces with ice cream and monkey bars. Meanwhile, I started messaging people. Carefully. Strategically. Megan first. I tried again. Me. I know you didn't mean to, but I saw your story. We drove 5 hours. Can you please tell me what you were told about the reunion? To my surprise, she answered. Megan, oh my God, I didn't know you weren't invited. Holly said you weren't coming, that it'd be too uncomfortable. I'm so sorry, Tiff. I feel awful. There it was. Too uncomfortable. I knew Holly had a flair for framing things in just the right way to excuse bad behavior. I asked Megan not to say anything. Not yet. Then I called Aunt Louise. Pretended to be casual. Oh, so good to hear your voice, Tiffany. I was hoping you were just running late yesterday. We missed you. I bit my lips so hard it bled. I thought it was canceled, I said carefully. Oh, no. Holly said she told you guys we were keeping it small this year, just to avoid awkwardness with Shane and all. Shane? He hadn't come. But the assumption was enough. They all thought I was the problem. It dawned on me how far Holly had gone. She didn't just leave me out, she recast me. Told people I was unstable, unpredictable, still obsessed with my ex. I knew how this worked. Holly had always been the curated one, the golden daughter. She wore effort like a perfume, subtle but unmistakable. I was the one with messy buns and PDA stains on my shirt. I wasn't supposed to win anything. And now, even after being cheated on and humiliated, I was the villain in her version of events. That night, when the kids were asleep in our motel room, I opened a Google Doc and started writing. Everything. Timeline of the reunion. Screenshots from Megan's DMs. Posts from Facebook. My mother's voice message from last month saying, "Can't wait to see the kids at the reunion." Timestamped proof that they'd planned to include me before someone changed their mind. I organized it all. Page after page. This wasn't about revenge. It was about telling the truth. Because if they wanted to make me invisible, I'd make myself impossible to ignore. The next morning, I took the kids out for pancakes. They were quieter than usual. My youngest asked, "Why didn't Grandma want us there?" I lied. I said it was a mix-up. But I knew kids remember that kind of pain. I did. I knew I couldn't undo what happened, but I could stop it from repeating. So I got to work. I started planning my own gatherings same weekend, 1 month later. I called it a family reset. No drama. No exclusions. Just truth, openness, and anyone who wanted to come. I reached out to every single relative I could, even the distant ones. I didn't accuse. I didn't rant. I simply told the truth. I'd driven 5 hours to a canceled reunion, only to find out it wasn't canceled at all. That we'd been excluded. That I didn't want pity, I wanted clarity. I invited them to something new. Something better. Some responded immediately. Some didn't know what to say. A few were shocked. I stayed calm. Always calm. That's how you fight people like Holly. Not by shouting louder, but by refusing to shrink. Then came the boldest move. I invited Shane. Yes, my ex-husband. The man who blew up our life for someone who called herself a spiritual intimacy coach. I knew Holly and my mother had spun a sob story to cover for him, made me out to be the bitter ex-wife who drove him away. Fine. Let's put that narrative to the test. I sent Shane a message. Me, hosting a family event. Not to fight, just to make things right. You and Renee are welcome. He replied 3 hours later. Shane, that's unexpected. But okay. We'll come. I didn't know what shocked me more, that he agreed, or that I actually wanted him there. Not for closure. For exposure. Let them all see the real story, not the polished version Holly whispered into wine glasses. I booked a pavilion at a nearby park. Sent digital invites. My cousin Alex offered to bring barbecue. Aunt Marcia said she'd bring old family photos. People were responding. They wanted connection, not sides. Meanwhile, Holly posted a photo of her and Mom with the caption, "Some bonds can't be broken." I didn't comment. I screenshotted it. By the time the event rolled around, I had a binder full of quiet receipts, messages, dates, discrepancies. I wasn't going to throw it at anyone. I wasn't even going to bring it out unless I had to. But it was my shield. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't making it up. The morning of the gathering, I curled my daughter's hair while she giggled. My boys ran around with balloons. The smell of charcoal filled the air. I looked around at the folding chairs, the cheap banners, the mismatched dishes. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And I had a feeling that by the end of the day, that would matter more than anything else. The park was buzzing with hesitant excitement. Cousins I hadn't seen since childhood hugged my kids tightly. Aunt Marcia's photo album was already making the rounds, sparking laughter and tears. It was imperfect, sure. There were missing faces and awkward pauses, but it felt like family again. Then, just as the sun dipped lower, I saw them, Shane and Renee, walking hand in hand through the pavilion entrance. A hush fell over the group. I felt every pair of eyes shift toward them. My heart pounded, but I stayed calm. I watched as Shane's eyes briefly met mine. No apologies, no guilt, just that cold look of someone who thought they'd won. Renee smiled confidently, unaware or uncaring of the storm she'd stepped into. I stepped forward and said, "I invited Shane and Renee because the truth matters. For years, you've been told my divorce was my fault. That I was unstable, jealous, bitter. But here they are." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Some faces flushed with surprise. Others shifted uncomfortably. My cousin Megan whispered, "I didn't know, Tiffany." "I'm sorry." Holly stood off to the side, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. My mother's eyes flickered between me and Shane, unsure how to act. I kept going, voice steady. This isn't about blame. It's about honesty. About breaking the cycle of lies that hurt not just me, but my kids, and all of us. Shane cleared his throat, trying to take control. "Tiffany, this isn't the place." I cut him off. "No, Shane. This is exactly the place." A few relatives nodded, others looked away. The tension was thick, but it was real. My kids played nearby, oblivious, and I felt a surge of pride. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting for them. And in that moment, surrounded by family, both fractured and hopeful, I realized something. This was the beginning of something new. Not perfect, not painless, but real. The fallout was immediate. The air thickened with whispers and sideways glances. Some relatives stormed off, unwilling to confront what they'd been kept in the dark about. Others stayed, seeking answers or struggling to process the sudden shift. Holly's composure cracked. Her voice trembled as she accused me quietly, "You don't belong here. You never did." My mother's eyes filled with tears, but it was hard to tell if it was regret or anger. I took a deep breath and said, "I don't want to fight. I want honesty. I want to rebuild what was broken." Voices rose, tears fell, and years of pent-up pain spilled out under the pavilion's fading light. My kids sat nearby, watching, learning that sometimes standing up means facing the hardest truths. When the crowd thinned, a few relatives approached me privately, apologies mixed with newfound respect. They thanked me for my courage. Over the following weeks, I kept reaching out, offering peace but holding firm boundaries. Slowly, the family began to realign, not around perfection, but around truth and inclusion. It wasn't easy. There were stumbles, resentments, and setbacks. But it was progress. One night, I found a message from Holly. Short, tentative. "Maybe we can talk." I didn't reply right away. Not because I didn't want to, but because healing takes time. My kids slept soundly that night, unaware of the battles fought on their behalf. But I knew this. We were no longer invisible. We were no longer silenced. We were family, flawed, fractured, but real. 1 year later, we made the drive again. This time, my hands were steady on the wheel. The kids bickered in the back seat, arguing about who'd win the three-legged race, and I smiled at the ordinary chaos. I pulled into the familiar driveway, but everything felt different. There were more cars this time, more laughter spilling out onto the lawn. I saw Aunt Marcia setting up her old folding table, cousins stringing up balloons, and even Uncle Gary grilling in his sun visor. No one was excluded. No whispered invitations. No shadow over the day. My mother greeted us at the door, awkward but earnest. She hugged each child, holding my youngest a little longer than the others. Her eyes were softer, her voice lower. There were still wounds between us, but I saw something new: humility. Maybe even the beginnings of respect. Holly arrived later, not with her usual air of superiority, but quietly, almost shy. She and I exchanged a look. Not forgiveness, not friendship, but a truce, maybe. The first stone laid in something that could become a bridge if we both worked at it. During lunch, someone made a toast about family, honesty, and the hard work it takes to love each other right. It wasn't directed at me, but I felt the eyes that lingered on mine. My kids were the stars of the day, no longer kept on the sidelines, but pulled into every game, every group photo, every circle of laughter. They ran, yelled, got grass stains, and made memories they wouldn't have to question years from now. I looked around and saw the difference. The stories being told were honest. There were apologies, awkward conversations, even arguments, but all in the open, nothing festering in the dark. Later that night, when we got back to our little rental cabin, the kids fell asleep fast. I sat alone on the porch, breathing in the night air, finally at peace. We weren't the family I'd once imagined. We were something harder to build, but infinitely more real. Not perfect, not healed, but healing. The reunion wasn't just a gathering. It was proof that boundaries and truth could create something worth coming back to.